Today, I'm gonna make a wall-mounted desk, super simple looking design, but it packs a punch. And I'm gonna go through some of the features in this desk. First, you have a hidden compartment that lets you hide some of your small belongings away from friends and family. Just close that up and they can literally work on top of your stuff and not even know. A slimline drawer that pull out on wooden tracks and you don't even need a handle. Just pull that thing out from the bottom. And if you wanna work in style, just turn on the LED and set the mood. And not only does this desk fit my need, but it's a space saver. I'm Glenn with DIY Creators, and let's make this build happen. Since I'm making this desk for a very small space, I'm gonna start by making the top first and build around that. The majority of my cuts will be made on the table saw, but of course you can use whatever tool you have to give you these cuts. And to keep track of each pieces, I'm going to add tape and put a label on each one. And whether you have a table saw, a miter saw, a circle saw, or a miter box, majority of these cuts are pretty manageable. I'll try to give you hints and alternative solution for a certain method throughout the video. At this point, majority of my cuts are already made, so it's time to move on to the build process. There will only be one drawer on this desk and I don't plan to store anything large in it, maybe some pens, pencils, and markers. The construction of the drawer will be very simple, just a box with a 1/4 inch piece of plywood on the bottom. And now I'm going to cut out a 1/4 inch rabbet which will accept the plywood to sit flush at the bottom. And if this piece come off to be too difficult for you, you can always just attach the plywood to the bottom. So for example, this is what I'm going for here. I want the plywood to sit exactly like this, pretty flush to the edge. Being that the drawer does not have a handle on it, I'm going to cut a piece of scrap wood just to see if I can fine tune that angle that I'm looking for, and that should give me enough grip to pull the drawer out. And the angle that I end up using was a 20-degree cut. Now at this point, I'm going to spend a large majority of the time sanding each individual pieces because I think it would be a lot easier to sand all the tough spot now, and then I'll have minimum sanding to do later on. The face of the drawer is made from oak and the remainder of the drawer is all made from pine. The trim is select pine and the majority of the desk is made of knotted pine. To assemble the drawers, I'm going to use a dowel method, and I'm going to start by marking the two pieces of wood together so that I have one line. Next, be sure to put the collar on the bit so you don't go all the way through once you drill down. Now place the dowel jig on the other piece of wood right on the line. Remove the jig and then drill down the remainder of the way, but try not to go too deep so that the whole dowel doesn't go down in the hole. And if done correctly, it should all line up perfectly. Next, mark the two pieces with the same letter or number. This way you keep track of which pieces go together. Now in most cases you may want to add 2 dowels, but in this case I feel like the glue will help the box stay together, so 1 should be enough. Now do the same thing for the remaining corners of the box. And this just so happened to be a perfect situation for a band clamp because it provides a tight clamp on the frame and it also helps keep the box square. Now I'm going to add glue to the rabbet cuts that I made previously. And as I stated before, if the rabbet cuts are too intimidating to give it a shot, you can always just attach the plywood to the bottom, use wood filler to hide all the imperfections. And just to confirm that your box is square, just measure diagonally on both sides and then it should be the same exact measurements. Then take a wet rag and clean up all your glue squeeze out and apply some weight on the bottom of the box. I also added a few nails just for added strength. And with the top facing down, I'm going to place all the pieces on top and then I'll mark all the location for the pocket holes. Then I'll go over to the pocket hole jigs and drill all the pocket holes in. Being that this desk is going to be in the shop, it's going to be taking a lot of bumps and bruises, so I'm going to apply a bead of glue to every piece and that should help provide extra strength. Next, I'm going to attach this inner piece to both sides and this will be a stop for the swing down door. Next, I'm going to attach these two pieces for the drawer slides, and you want to check the spacing to make sure that it's correct between the front and the back. Then attach the other side and also check the measurings from front to back on both pieces, on the outside and the inner piece, just to make sure that the opening is identical. And next, to attach the backdrop of the desk, I'm going to put pocket holes in these miter corners, and be sure that you do them on the opposite end and you'll see what I mean, because if you do it on the same end you might end up with two wrong pieces. Now of course, if you want to do dowels, you can do dowels as well for this joint. Now just clamp this into place and use pocket hole screws to attach the two, and do the same thing for the opposite side. Now I'm going to attach this piece to the back, which is a non-moving part, and this is the back support. And also I'm going to mark and then install these pieces of wood at the bottom, and this is where I'm going to attach the hinge to. And due to the depth of the desk, I'm going to install the hinge the opposite way that you would normally install them. To drill the hole in the correct spot, I made a quick jig measuring off the existing door that I had on my kitchen cabinets. Now normally you will install the round side of the jig on the door itself and the other side to the wall, because that's your adjustments. And as I said before, I was limited to the space that I could use, so I just flipped the hinge around. Now attach the hinge side to the door, and we'll attach this piece to the desk later on in the video. And as the desk is starting to come together, I'm going to now add the slides for the drawer. My initial plan was to buy one, but I couldn't find any that fits the space, so I'm gonna make some. Now after marking the slot for the drawer slides, I'm gonna tape the end of it so that I have any blowout, and then I'll use the router to make my first pass through, cutting about 1/8 of an inch first, then I'll lower the bit, and then I'll cut the remaining piece. Now once the track's routed, it should have a little play in it so it's not super tight. Then do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm playing with tight space, so the spacing has to be at a minimum for this desk, and keep in mind that yours can be a whole lot different. You can make it adjusted to however you may want it, make your drawer as big as you like. I'm using a framing square as a spacer, but I've used coins in a previous video. You can use whatever you need to create that space. And keep in mind, if you don't have a nail gun, you can always pre-drill and use small screws and attach these as well. I wanted to keep the spacing between the top of the drawer at a minimum, so I took a piece of paper, folded a few times just to create a small gap, used some hot glue to attach it and hold it temporarily, clamp that in place, and then I come back with a drill and add a few screws. The drawer seemed to fit perfectly, and I'm happy with the progress so far. To keep the door closed, I'm going to use these roller catch, and I'm going to take a scrap piece of wood, cut that at 2 inches to use that as spacing for this side and the opposite side. Now depending on the weight of your door, these actually works great, but if you have any concern, you can always add a file cabinet lock, or you can always find any other means of securing your door into place. Now to install the other end on the door, I'm going to take a framing square and carry the line up, take the same piece of 2-inch wood, mark the bottom of that, and then put the catch into place, screw that down, and it should be in the right spot. So just keep in mind, there is a little play in the roller catch, so it swings back and forth, so you don't have to be dead on, but this is close enough. And at this point, I need to mark the height of the desk, and I'm going to mark mine at 36 inches high. Now the normal desk is around 30 to 32 inch, I believe, so in this case I want to be able to use my desk standing up or sit down, so I felt like that was the happy medium. I took a stud finder, found a stud in the wall, marked that spot, then I drew a straight line down. Adding these L brackets are the most important part of this build, because it adds strength to the design, and it also gives the design the ability to look good. So without these, you would have to have some kind of hardware, or the desk would not be suitable to take weight. Temporarily, I used 1.5 inch screws to mount the brackets to the wall. The brackets will be sitting in these openings, so I need to transfer the marking of the bracket so that I can cut out the door support and make sure it slides into place. Now sit the brackets in place and then transfer the thickness of it over to the back panel of the wood. Now take a saw and cut out that section. When you're removing a piece of wood from a section as such, you can use a regular saw just fine for that. But when you need to remove material from an awkward area as such, you can always use a coping saw, and that seemed to work great. And if all went well, the bracket should slide right through with no issue. You'll also need to notch out the bottom part of the desktop so that it doesn't interfere with the desk sliding all the way to the wall. Now pre-drill and add screws to all 4 cross members along the back side of the desk. So now I'm installing the lower panel, and of course I'm using pocket hole screws to attach that along the perimeter. I'll then go on to add the bottom as well. Now to install the LED on the back side of the desk, I'm going to mark 2 inches from both sides in. Then I'll write off a small fraction of the desk so that the LED sit flush with the top. Now I'm sure everyone's not into the LED stuff, but if you are and you don't know how to do the routing part of this, you can always just lay the LED on the top of the desk and that should work fine as well. So here I'm going to notch out this section so that the LED can turn down into the desk and all the connection will be hidden, just like so. And since the desk is getting ready to be mounted in this spot, I'm going to do something I've been wanting to do since I moved in 4 years ago: paint this wall. Now of course in 4 years I had plenty of time to make paint decisions on the house, but I decided I'll live with the color until I get ready to work on that particular area. So now I'm going to permanently install the brackets, and I'm going to use 3-inch screws to mount these brackets to the wall. So I believe it was much easier to just mount one bracket and then use the level to mount the second bracket. And this way I know the desk will be straight. Since I'm going to paint the desk white, I'm going to make all the joints and imperfection in the desk disappear by adding a ton of wood filler. If I can compare this wood filler to anything, it would be more like joint compound, but it dries fast and you can sand it within minutes. Now I didn't buy this wood particularly for this project. I had bought this wood for some other project, but I never really got to it, so I used it for this project. In any case, I probably would use MDF to make this desk because it's much smoother. Now as a way of improving the quality of my builds, I'm going to start spraying even more this year just to give it that professional feel. So the entire desk is white, but I'm going to put a stain finish on the drawer. I'm using a hickory gel stain from Minwax, and just simply apply it with a rag and then simply remove it with a rag, and I'll do the entire drawer, the inside, the outside, the sides, the tracks, and also the front. Now attach the LED in the slot that was previously cut out. Now work the LED into the opening, and I'll come back with some caulking to fill in the gap. Now drill a hole in the second piece of wood for the wire harness to pass through. Take some hot glue to fill the gap to hold the LED in place. Now drill a small hole for the infrared to pass through, but don't pull it all the way through, just leave it inside the hole. Now attach the controller to the back. Now cut out a slot for the power wire to exit. Now you have to keep in mind, if you're making a desk like this, what you want to do is identify where your power outlet is that's closest to the desk and put your power plug on that side. Now the way I'm going to install this wire is probably a bit of an overkill, but I just want to give you a few ideas on what you can do to keep your wire strapped in. First, I put a knot in the wire, and then I put a cable stapler in the way, zip tied to that, so this way the wire won't pull out. But if you had a staple gun, you can always staple the wire as well. Now I'll put the desk back together, and it's time to mount it. And if all went well, we should be able to slide the desk into place and then attach it from the bottom. So at the end of the bracket, there's a bit of a gap between the desk and the bracket, and I have to shim it because if I just screw them together, it's going to pull the front of the desk down and it will not be level. But adding a piece of shim actually give us a level desk. To help the drawer slide smooth, I'm going to add furniture wax in the slot and also on a track. Without breaking the desk or damaging the wall, I'm not sure on the weight capacity of the desk, but I'm sure that it can hold at least 130 pounds, and that's a whole lot more than whatever would be put on the desk. So to keep this part simple, I'm just going to find a bin that I can add 2-side tape to and then attach that to the door. And even though I only showed one side on here, there's an identical side for hidden storage as well on the opposite side. So if you see this as a project you'll be tackling in the future, just keep in mind that I made this as a build for me and it fit my space. You may want to expand yours and manipulate it to fit your needs. So if you want to put a gun or you want to store some valuables in it, just keep that in mind as you're putting this together, the depth, the width, so that you can accommodate for those adjustments. And to put the finishing touch on this build, I'm going to add a piece of chain that I had laying around. I just cut a few links off of it and attach that, and that prevents the door from swinging down all the way. Many of the items you've seen in the video were items that I had on hand, so I didn't go out and spend any money to build this desk, but I will have links in the video description just in case you guys want some help finding some of these pieces. I am working on a set of plans for this build, so I should have that done in a few days, so you can always come back and check the video description and you should be able to find a link to the plans. I'm Glenn with DIY Creators, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this build down in the comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you think I did an awesome job to start the new year, and also don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel. I'll catch you guys on the next one.